Sunday afternoon here in Australia. What better way to spend my day than to record a sneaky show? What are we? 6 weeks, 5 weeks, 5 weeks from the start of the NBA season. Preseason is only 2.5 weeks, roughly. So yeah, look, it's time to start getting into draft content, which has been rolling out for a while. But thank you. Before I get into everything, this is Stuff It, part of the Old Man Squad, brought to you by FanDuel, brought to you by Fantrax. Do give us a thumbs up. Do go and subscribe to Old Man Squad. Plenty of good shows on the network there for you to check out. What am I going to talk about today? Well, we've been doing a lot of sleeper stuff, my guy stuff, that sort of thing. I think people are really just wanting to know, who do I target in drafts? Where is the value? So I thought, now ADP data, obviously we're still pretty raw. We're still quite early. So the numbers are going to change. But I just thought I'd go through player ranks or player ranks projections based on current Fantrax ADP data. So based on who is currently in the first round of drafts, who is my favorite target? Same for the second round, and so on. Now, who is my favorite? Now, I guess what's the criteria here? For me, it's just players I like. Who has the most value? Now, this is probably going to lean a little bit into punting because, as you know, I basically punt in every league that I'm in. So some of these guys that I like are going to be better suited to punt builds, but I'll certainly won't rely on that. So hopefully these names can help you, even if you're not punting, and yeah, help you to find some value if you are drafting in the next week to 2 weeks. Still pretty early, so it is an opportunity to get some value. I think once we hit October, and analysts have been speaking and pumping up, fueling a lot of players, some of that value is going to disappear. So yeah, hopefully this is useful if you are drafting, as I said, in the next 1 to 2 weeks. Let's start with the first round. Now, I've pulled this up in the Basketball Monster site. I'm not showing any of the projections or anything like that. It's simply the list of players based on current ADP, as I said, over on Fantrax. So here is a list of what the first round looks like at the moment. Top three, I'm even going to say top four at this point is pretty set. The order can change. Beyond that, it gets a little bit not messy, but you can throw in a few names. Giannis tends to go at 5 or 6, and then it really opens up. So where is the value? Who is my favorite target here? Now, in the first round, obviously it depends on where you're drafting, a little bit more than the 4th round or the 8th round. As you get deeper into drafts, it doesn't matter as much because the difference between, say, the 49th player and the 60th player is insignificant when compared to the difference between the first player and the 12th player. So it does depend on where you're drafting. Where would I like to be drafting in the first round? I think if you've got a top 4 pick, you're fine because you will take one of Jokic, Wemby, Shea, or Luka. They're your top 4. I actually don't mind getting pick 4 and then your decision is made for you. I do think Wemby's my number 1 pick this season. I think he's just going to be a monster. I think the Spurs are going to be really good. I was just checking out before coming on here the regular season win totals over on FanDuel. You can go over and check all of that out. Currently, the Spurs are over-under is 44.5 games. I think they'll be eyeing 50. So I'd actually take the over on this. Now, obviously, a lot of it comes down to the health of Wembanyama, but with their recent draft picks, De'Aaron Fox running the show, Wemby there, Devin Vassell, I think, looked pretty good last year. I just think all the pieces, I know the Western Conference is pretty loaded, but I would be taking the over there on the Spurs, I think. So head over to FanDuel, check out all of their preseason odds, I suppose we want to call it. There's Christmas Day, there's playoffs, there's player props and all sorts of things. So yeah, do head over, check that out. But I do think Wemby is in for a big year. Now, is he my favourite target? If I've got the number 1 pick, that's who I'm taking. Look, I'm going to as I said, a little bit harder with the first round because it really does depend on where you're drafting. If you are not drafting in the top 4, so say if you have pick 8, 9, 10, who is my favourite target? I'm going to go with Anthony Davis purely because I think he has the highest upside. If we look at Cade, Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, James Harden, Trae Young, Devin Booker, all those players, Anthony Davis for me is the one that could finish inside the top 5, top 4. I know he is getting on a little bit. Injuries are certainly a risk. So if you don't want to take that risk, then obviously you're probably not going to go down that path. But for me, he is the player here with the most upside. Cade is probably my most enjoyable target. I just love Cade. I have him in 2 dynasty leagues, I think. So I think if you're just looking for fun and a guy that's a little bit, I'm not going to say unproven anymore because he was very good last year, but of all of these names, he is the one I think with a little bit of upside and who hasn't sort of demonstrated it over multiple seasons yet. And Trae Young, obviously a nice target if you're at the back end and you're just looking for assists. They are quite hard to get as you get deep into drafts. So let's go with Anthony Davis with an honourable mention to Cade Cunningham and Trae Young. All right, we get into the second round, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky. As I've said on multiple shows, once you get to about pick 6 or 7, I think you can make a case for, I don't know, let's say at least 12, maybe 15 players who could go in the first round. So again, looking for upside. And in the second round, you want to be targeting someone who could be a first rounder. Best case scenario. Who is that guy? I mean, we've got some really good players here. Steph Curry, Donovan Mitchell, Tyrese Maxey, LeBron James, Jalen Brunson. I don't think any of those guys can be first rounders this season. Look, I guess Jaren Jackson could, but his value is really heavily reliant on blocks. So I'm not going to go with him. I'm actually going to go... Look, again, if we are looking at first-round upside, I think LaMelo is the player here, but I don't know if he's my favourite target. He's burned me a couple of years in a row now, so I am a little bit cautious on him. With that said, if you're getting him at 24, I don't mind it. I think, as I said, first-round upside, I think LaMelo has it, but he would need to play 60 games, 62, 63 games. The Hornets would need to be competitive. So there's certainly some risk there. So I'm not necessarily going to call him my favourite pick. No, look, let's go with Evan Mobley. I think, again, first-round upside, maybe. I don't think we've seen the best of him. I do think last season was obviously his best season. The Cavs are basically rolling it back. And to me, the question or the discussion here around what Mobley can do this season is how much do they play him at centre? In the past, it's obviously been Jarrett Allen at centre, Evan Mobley at power forward, which does limit, I think, what Mobley can do defensively. Now, Jarrett Allen is certainly a good player, but can he get any better? I don't think he can. I think he is who he is at this point. Mobley has far more upside, defensive player of the year last year. And like I said, I think he's capped with what he can do because of Jarrett Allen. They signed Larry Nance. Do they lean a little bit more into Mobley at centre and Larry Nance at the 4? I think it's certainly an option for them. They need to... I know they were very good last year, but the playoffs exposed them a little bit. So I do think they're going to try some things this season. So Mobley, for me, just if you're picking in the middle of the second round, maybe later if he's available, I'm going to go Mobley with, an honourable mention to LaMelo Ball. On to the third round. Now, this one's actually hard for a different reason. I think there's a few players here who have first round, at least second round upside. I'll start at the top, Amen Thompson. If I can get him so this is first pick of the third round, so his ADP is sitting around 25. I think I'm happy taking him in the second round, late first in a punt build. I got him at 20. I want to say 27 in a mock draft yesterday. So right on where his ADP is. I'm absolutely fine taking him. Jalen Johnson, likewise, fine taking him in the second round. Who's my favourite? Look, I'll go with those two just because I love having them on my team this season. But I do think, Holmgren, Şengün, Siakam could have a really good year. Banchero. So there's a lot of really exciting names here. I do just want to talk about Josh Giddey. So his ADP is sitting here at, what's that make it? Around 30. Now, a lot of question marks in terms of what the production he put up late last year, is that sustainable? Is that what he can do for a season? Remains to be seen. I think down the stretch, he was like first round or something last year, I want to say, without having the numbers in front of me. So getting him at pick 30, I don't mind it, but I'm not sure how much room there is for him to move up. Like, can he be the 15th ranked player this season? Best case, yes. But there's just a little bit too much risk there. So I don't mind taking him at 30. I would rather get him in the fourth round, but chances are he's not going to be available. And Dyson Daniels, I'll just talk about him really quickly. Obviously, people know I was super high on him last year, and it was a good move for me, getting him everywhere. I got him yesterday in that same mock draft at around, what was it, 32, like 38, I want to say, something like that. Which is pretty much in line with his ADP here. Now, obviously, his value is heavily tied to steals. Assists are serviceable. Field goal percentage is decent for a guard, so he is very good if you're going for a punt sort of assists and points build or something like that. I don't mind this range. I thought he was actually going to go higher. I thought he'd push into the 20s. I don't mind getting him closer to 40. I think that's okay. I know he is almost a one category player, but I don't mind getting him here. But let's go with Amen Thompson and Jalen Johnson as my favourites here in the third round. All right, the fourth round. Again, the reverse. I actually don't really like anyone in this range. This is really hard. This is where I'd be hoping that Giddey or Dyson Daniels or someone like that falls into the fourth round. If we could just jump back up here. If Cooper Flagg fell, if Paolo Banchero fell, even if Siakam fell down into this fourth round, I'd be much happier. Derek White, I think per game could be really good. I'm just worried about the games played for Boston. Same goes for Jaylen Brown. So, again, leaning into injuries here, I'm going to go with Kawhi Leonard. So his ADP, based on here, we're looking at the third to last pick of the fourth round. So that's pick 46. I think you have to take Kawhi there. He still has first round upside for me. And again, that is always, or should always be in the back of your mind. Can this player be a first round player? Obviously, as you get deeper into drafts, that's going to be really hard to find. But in the fourth round, Kawhi Leonard, proven. I thought he looked really good last year. His health was okay as well. The Clippers are very old this year, so I do think they're going to take a cautious approach across the board. I think they'll be looking to limit players and manage minutes. So I don't really see a way that Kawhi plays more than about 60 games. Now, let's just drag this across slightly and have a look at... So he's projected for 60 games. So Josh has got him projected for 60 games, which I think is about right. And 60 games of a guy that could be the 11th ranked player at pick 46, you have to do it. So for me, he's my favourite here. If I want to throw an honourable mention in, I might go Trey Murphy. Again, very good last year. I think he's arguably the best player on the Pelicans. I think obviously Zion's in that discussion, but very unproven at this point. So I'll go with Trey at 47. Doesn't sort of help you astronomically in any one category, but quite efficient, hits threes, gets steals, good from the free throw line. He'll be tasked with doing more. I think he's proven himself. There was some question marks about his role over the last couple of years, but he's a flat out starter now and they're, as I said, arguably their best player. So yeah, I don't mind getting him here at the back end of the fourth round as well. Okay, looking into the 5th round. Now, there's some nice value here. I will just mention Joel Embiid. Look, pick 50, I think, is fine if you've drafted really well. I wouldn't. I'm just not touching Joel Embiid. I'm going to leave him for someone else this season. If it comes back to bite me, so be it. But I'm just not interested in him at all. Look, Denny Avdia is in this range. I just think taking him at pick 50 eliminates a lot of the upside for him. Best case, what is he? Top 40, top 45. So yeah, I'm not really into him this high. Zion is here. Just talked about him. Certain builds, absolutely, I would take him here, and I would argue that he's the best option in this range. But again, risks, injuries, hamstrings especially are tricky with just the way he plays. So I'm actually going to go with Kristaps Porzingis. Just again, per game, not projecting games played or anything. It's probably going to be in the 60 range. They'll be cautious with him. But I think per game, he is someone, as I said, who could be a first-round player. If he's averaging 19 points, I don't know, 10.5 rebounds, 2 blocks, 2 threes, 0.8 steals, good from the line, plays 62 games, then that's borderline first-round production. So I'm going to go with Porzingis, and I'm also just going to mention Walker Kessler. Again, he is probably a little bit more build dependent, but getting a guy who could be second in the league in blocks to Wemby, he could be 2.6. Utah, I mean, we don't know what they're going to do, but I think we saw enough from him last year. If again 60 games, that seems to be sort of a threshold here. If you can draft a guy whose floor is 60, and I think for Kessler, if he doesn't get injured, it probably is. Of course, any sign of injury, they probably pull him out. But yeah, I don't mind Kessler in this range. I think he went around this in yesterday's mock draft, maybe even slightly earlier. But I love him in a punt points kind of a build. Certainly gets a big bump. I think if you, in a multi-cat punt, which I often do, punting something like points, threes, and assists, he moves up to be about it's like the 5th ranked player or something. So yeah, let's go with Porzingis and Walker Kessler in that range. Excuse me. Let's go to the next round. Yeah, look, this is an interesting area of the draft. This is where you can start taking some risk. But finding those first-round players is a lot harder. If anyone that plays fantasy knows that. Who are my favourite targets here? Look, I love Fred VanVleet. I talked about him on Dan's show yesterday. I think in this, I mean, what are we at? Let's have a look at ADPs here. So we're at Fantrax ADP of 62. So his Yahoo ADP is 87, a lot lower. But even at 60, I don't mind it. Obviously in the 80s, I'd much rather him. So I'm not going to go with VanVleet here. I think there's some decent value just in terms of you're drafting a guy in the 60s and he could finish as the top 50 player. Duran, Brandon Miller, Kobe White, Larry Markkinen, they're all in that discussion. So who has the upside to finish the highest in this bunch? I'm going to go with Jakob Poeltl. Talked about him as well on Dan's show. Again, a little bit punt dependent. He, much like Walker Kessler, he doesn't do a lot in terms of, well, he does nothing in terms of threes. Assists are they're not disgusting. They're not great, but for a center, they're not too bad. But rebounds, points will be fine. He'll be sort of 15 points. But rebounds, blocks. Now, he's not like Walker Kessler. He's not a 2.6, 2.4 blocks per game. He's more like a 1.3. But he's also a 1.1 steals. So gets a little bit of value there. Very efficient. The free throws aren't great, but fairly certain from memory, there was a period last season where he was sitting at around 80 from the line. So even if he's at 70, 71 this season, he doesn't shoot a lot of free throws, so he's actually not going to drag you down too much. So I'll go with Jakob Poeltl in this range, and I'll just touch on Emmanuel quickly as well, his teammate. Now, last season, we were I was pushing him as sort of like a fourth round target. And then he got injured and missed 2/3 of the season. The Raptors, by the time he was sort of back and healthy, the Raptors were done. So they didn't push him too much. He was sitting out back-to-backs. He was playing every second game. It was pretty frustrating. This season, I think the Raptors are probably all in. Brandon Ingram is hopefully healthy. I really like their starting five. It's a curious mix of players, but talent-wise, I think they're in a weakened East. I won't say they're as good as any team, but they're certainly one of the better starting fives. The depth will be a little bit of an issue, but due to the injuries last season, they actually were able to get some minutes into guys who probably weren't expected to play significant roles. So that only helps them moving forward. So quickly, for me, if you can get him in this round, in the 6th round, I think he still has top 50 upside, top 40 maybe. So I would consider him. If you missed out on point guards early, I would look at Emmanuel quickly here. All right, let's get into the 7th round. Look, 7th round, we're certainly getting into an area where people are taking a bit more risk. Paul George is sort of a prime example of that. Brandon Ingram coming off it was an ankle injury, but he's certainly had multiple injuries over the last few years. And those guys are top 50 players, but how many games are they going to play? So it comes down to a little bit of how have I drafted thus far. I'm going to go with Mark Williams. Again, talked about him on Dan's show. He's one of my favorite center targets, not in that top range. I think he could be a top 40 player this year, top 30, best case. And his ADP is sitting here at 75. So 75 on Fantrax, 86 on ESPN. Now, people are cautious, and rightfully so. The injuries have been prominent, let's say, for his whole career, basically. But I thought when he played last season, he looked really good. He is going to be the starting center in Phoenix. Nick Richards is not going to challenge him for minutes. Carmen Malawach is intriguing, but still very raw. So I think Phoenix, as a franchise that is looking to turn things around, they will want to win games. They still have a decent team, and I just think that Mark Williams playing alongside Devin Booker, if you think back to DeAndre Ayton's better years when he was with Phoenix, Mark Williams, so that puts him in that discussion of top 40. But again, yes, injuries are certainly a concern. All right, onto the next round. Look, Asar Thompson's the obvious one here for me, but I do understand that for certain people, he may not be your best option because he is pretty limited in a couple of categories. He won't hit a lot of threes. Points are serviceable, but not great. Also, the free throws are pretty ordinary. But if Detroit utilize him the way I think they should, and they play him 30 minutes a night, we saw what Amen Thompson did last year. Not saying Asar is going to be identical to that. I don't think he has the assists upside, and he's simply not in the position to have the assists upside because he doesn't have the ball in his hands as much. But defensively, I think he could be better. He's efficient from the field because he doesn't shoot a lot of threes. He gets to the rim. So obviously missed games last year because of the blood clot issue. Assuming that's fine and behind him, then there's no real issues with his health. So Asar is the pretty obvious one here for me. If you're looking for more like a player who can help you or not hurt you in as many categories, I suppose, let's put it that way, then maybe I go with Kel'el Ware. I was pretty high on him last year. I think he's going to start at center. He hits threes, he gets blocks, he gets rebounds, he's efficient. So as a center, he gives you center stats, but then you throw in some threes as well. I think he's an intriguing target. Again, if you've missed a center early and you're looking, especially if you're on a Yahoo league and you have two centers for whatever reason, then then definitely Kalel Ware. I'll just mention Peyton Pritchard as well. His ADP is sitting here in the, again, checking the numbers. My math's a bit off today. 86. How good can Peyton be this year? Look, the whole Boston situation, which I talked about earlier with Jaylen Brown and Derek White, it's relevant for Pritchard, but I actually don't think it's as relevant. I think if they were to start resting players, White and Brown would be the two that would be sort of withdrawn first. I just think they're going to play Pritchard. So I do think he could hit 70 games this year, and he's probably like a 20 points, 19 points, 5.5, 6 assists. Doesn't get a lot of steals, hits a lot of threes. So I don't mind Pritchard in this range as well. But let's go Asar Thompson, possibly Kalel Ware, and then just another honourable mention to Peyton Pritchard. All right, now we're getting into an interesting part of the draft. Once you get into the 100 range, which we are sort of nudging, let's say. Yeah, look, we're at 98 for Tamani Kamara. This is where you can really start taking some flyers. Now, I'll get straight to it. Mattis Buzelis is my favourite target here. If you can get him after pick 100, I think you have to take him. I mentioned him again on, was he? I think he was one of my favourite guys. I think I talked about him on Dan's show as well. I think if we, going back to what I said at the top of the show, you're looking for first round upside wherever possible. Now, I'm not saying Buzelis is going to be a first rounder, but of these players in this list, who could be top 50? Who could be top 40? I would argue Buzelis is the only one. He scores efficiently. He hits threes. He gets blocks. He gets steals. He's good from the free throw line. He's not going to help you astronomically in any one category, but he doesn't hurt you either. And if the Bulls utilize him correctly, play him 32 minutes, I think we saw enough down the stretch last year that I would say his floor, if he's playing 32 minutes a night, is top 80. Let's say top 75, and you're getting him at pick 100 outside the top 100 here. So there's 2 rounds of value immediately. And yeah, like I said, top 50, top 40, that would give you, 5 to 6 rounds of value. I just don't see that with anyone else here. Devin Vassell, who I was quite high on last year, I just think he's going to settle into sort of a third, fourth wheel role. With De'Aaron Fox there now, with Stephon Castle there, and having had a good year, Wemby, he's just not as high on the pecking order. So he was someone who I liked in that 50 to 60 range. Now, I do think outside the top 100 is really nice. So I am going to say that he is sort of one of my preferred targets here, as is Tamani Kamara. He was another player I was pretty high on last year, and I would hazard a guess that the one of the more common questions I got last year was, do I hold Tamani Kamara all through the season? My answer was always yes, and I'm glad it was, because he was really good. Just mentioned Scoot as well. Look, if the Blazers start him and play him 31 minutes, then top 100 is well within reach. Top 80, maybe. You're not going to get many guys in this range who can get you 18 points, 7.5 assists, 1.1 steals, 2 threes. Scoot is that guy. So he is someone, again, if you're looking for point guard stats late in drafts, I would be taking a flyer on him and just crossing your fingers that Portland actually use him the right way. All right, now we're certainly into flyer territory. So I'm probably going to move away a bit here from who is my preferred target per round, only because I think once you're into the hundreds, I could scroll down into, 4 more rounds and say that there's a guy I'd take at pick 100. So let's just scroll through sort of the next, 40 names, and I'll just pull out a couple that I think, because we're certainly into late round flyer territory. The ADPs here are 110 we're looking at. So I think anywhere past that qualifies as late round flyers. So who am I looking at in this range? Brandon Pajemski is one. He was really good down the stretch last year. I think they figured things out. Whether Kuminga's there, that probably plays a little bit of a role, but I think Pajemski starts. He's certainly coming into this season more confident after what we saw last year. So I like Pajemski. I don't mind Zach Eady if you're simply looking for blocks and rebounds and field goal percentage. Now, there is a bit of a question about availability to start the season. He's coming in with an injury, and drafting anyone with a pre-existing injury can be fraught with danger. But again, pick 110, 115. That eliminates a lot of that risk. Not really anyone else on this list. Look, Filipowski, if he was assured of a starting role in big minutes, I think he will be at some point. But to start the season, I just don't think we're there. DeJounte, if you've got an IR spot, throw him in there. Same with Kyrie Irving. We don't know when they're coming back. Their per game upside obviously is very high in this range, but yeah, you would have to have drafted quite well and have multiple IR spots to be doing that. Let's go down even further. All right, who do I like here? I'm always partial to Derek Lively. He's usually available at the back end of drafts. People just don't seem to be set on him. But to me, I think he's the guy that Dallas wants starting alongside Anthony Davis. 28 minutes, 29 minutes. Daniel Gafford is obviously a very talented backup. So I don't think Lively's coming in and playing 33 minutes or anything like that. But 29 minutes, if he can stay healthy, then I like him as a late center target. Kevin Porter, I'm certainly not high on him as a player in general. But again, much like Scoot Henderson, if you can get a guard that's going to get you points in the mid to high teens, and more than 6 assists a game with a steal, decent from the free throw line, then you have to take it. Kevin Porter fits that mold. I want to say Jabari Smith. I want him to be a good player, but I'm just not convinced yet, so I'm not going to mention him. Cason Wallace, I think, plays a pretty big role for the Thunder this year. Now, I know they're pretty much running it back, but there will be a little bit of management, I think, this season as they look to go back-to-back. Cason Wallace, 28, 29 minutes. He's not going to get you a lot of points, maybe 10, maybe 11, but he could get you close to 2 steals. And as we know with Dyson Daniels, very valuable. Cason Wallace wouldn't surprise me if we get to the end of the season and Cason Wallace is like 6th in the league in steals. So if you need steals, and he's relatively efficient. I actually took him in that draft yesterday. He fits that build of efficient guards who don't necessarily get assists and points, but they get steals. He fits that build. So I like Cason Wallace in this range. TJ McConnell, I would like to like him, but I just don't see the Pacers playing him more than about 24 minutes. I know the opportunity is going to be there with no Halliburton, but I think the minutes just go elsewhere. We saw last season whenever Halliburton was injured, they just didn't want to extend McConnell. So I'm not convinced that they will do that as much as I would like to see them do it. We're getting into the weeds here a little bit. Taylor Hendricks intrigues me. He started last season it was only about 3 or 4 games before his leg injury cost him the whole season. I still think he's like a 1-1 player. They're always intriguing. 1-3, 1 steal, 1 block. The path to minutes is a little bit clouded when compared to last season. They've obviously got Ace Bailey there now, who complicates things a little bit. So I'm not set on Hendricks, but I think as a last round target, he's worth a look just to see if he starts or even comes off the bench and plays 26, 27 minutes, then I think he could do just enough in a few categories. Jay Huff, there's been a bit of talk about him starting. I think he might. I actually prefer Isaiah Jackson. I just think Jay Huff is like 28, 27. He is who he is. He does space the floor, which is interesting, but I just don't really see a lot of upside for him at this point. I think Isaiah Jackson has a bit more of that. And for a Pacers team that are looking to the future, Isaiah Jackson fits that rather than a 27, 28-year-old sort of journeyman. Mitchell Robinson, I really like. I took him in that draft yesterday. I know he's playing backup to Karl Anthony Towns. Could they start him? Maybe. I think there's going to be situations where they do start him alongside Towns, but I just think he plays 22 minutes this season, 23. New coach. I think we can all agree they played Cat too much last year. He was dealing with a number of injuries down the stretch. So I think Mitchell Robinson, assuming he's healthy, he only needs 22, 23 minutes, and he'll get you 9 rebounds. Not a lot of points, but he's very efficient and still an elite rim protector, I think. So as a late centre who gives you traditional big man stats, I really like Mitchell Robinson. And again, at this point of the draft, there's no risk. So happy to take him there. There's Isaiah Jackson. Again, last round, take him and see. He's coming off a pretty significant injury himself. So there is risk there. Who else? Adem Bona. I mean, if you've drafted Joel Embiid, I would certainly consider Adem Bona with your last pick. I know we don't like to use the term handcuff in fantasy basketball, but Adem Bona, I think we saw last season, he was pretty impressive. So do they manage Joel Embiid to the point where Bona can have value, standalone value? Does he play like Embiid? Do they look at sort of playing him 26 minutes and Bona gets 22? Maybe. I think they'd like to do that. What they say, what they do, we will see. But last round, target, see what happens. Nemesh Keita probably going to start as the center in Boston, and was pretty good in the Eurobasket as well. So he's a little bit undersized, but he's still a fairly good defender. So again, last round center, if you need one, look at Nemesh Keita. And what have we got left? Not many. Oh, there is a name down the bottom there. I'll get to him. Anyone on this page? Not really. I took Thibault with my last pick in the draft yesterday. That was a 16-teamer, though, so we were looking in the 200 range. And that's purely because we know that in 20 minutes he can get you 2 steals a game. That was the only reason I took him. He doesn't turn the ball over, if that matters. Josh Minot is someone I'd keep an eye on. I'm not saying I would draft him, but if Boston do go down, if their season goes down the toilet, as we think it might, Josh Minot is intriguing. I just think he has a fairly fantasy-friendly game. And if he probably only starts by playing 12, 14 minutes a night. But if at some point he steps into a significant role, I think he could have fantasy value. And then just down the bottom of this page, one guy I want to talk about, and that's Keyshawn George from for Washington, for the Wizards. Bilal Coulibaly has had some surgery. He's going to miss a little bit of time, not much. I was sort of aboard Keyshawn anyway. I think he looked good last year. I thought he played really well in Summer League. He has an interesting skill set, so out of position stats. He's a good rebounder, a good defender. It's different to his brother, Keontae George, who is more of a traditional guard. Keyshawn will get you some of those different stats. So again, his role, I'm not sure. Washington have a weird sort of bucket of youth there. The top end talent is not great, but they have, 8 players who you could consider value-wise are very similar. So where does Keyshawn? He could play 21 minutes. He could play 31 minutes. We just don't know. Take him with your last round pick. Have a look at him in the preseason. See what he looks like. See what his role is. But I like him over someone like a Bub Carrington, for example, who we're not high on last year, but we were sort of talking about him as a late round guy. So yeah, there's my list. Let's remove that and let's add me back. There we go. So hopefully that list helps. Sorry, I'll just minimize this down here. Hopefully it helps you in your drafts. As I said, if you're drafting now, this is more relevant. If you're drafting in a month and you come back and watch this, value could have changed completely. But yeah, we are doing mocks. So yeah, now is the time if you do want to find that value. Watch this show. Ask me questions on Twitter. You know where to find me at AdamKing91. As I said at the top, please go and like and subscribe. to the Old Man Network, to my show, YouTube, Spotify, Apple. We're across everywhere. Today's episode was brought to you by FanDuel. Thank you to FanDuel and to Fantrax. We'll be rolling out some mock drafts in the next couple of weeks as well over on Fantrax. Any questions regarding Fantrax? As I have been pumping them up a little bit, so fire the questions at me if you've got any. But thank you for tuning in for today's episode. I'm Adam King. This has been Stuff It, a fantasy basketball podcast. We are done.